It continues to be a time when we can't be together. I've not seen so many of you in what seems like an eternity. And I miss hearing the voices of our school children. I miss our filled Freeman Levitt Sanctuary on Friday nights. I miss celebrating life with so many of you. I could never have imagined a time when I'd be officiating numerous Zoom baby namings, Zoom Brit Milah, Shiva Minyanim and funerals done virtually, B'nai Mitzvah, even Zoom weddings. Yes, all of them are meaningful, but they're nothing like being with the people we love and cherish. My friends, I believe this pandemic has by far been the most challenging time in the very long history of our congregation, because this great challenge has driven us apart when we needed each other the most. At least with the hurricanes, Hurricane Harvey, our contractor could give us the assurance of when we'd come back into our synagogue. There was a light, a very bright light at the end of a very dark tunnel. Now, no one, not even the brightest medical minds in the world, can tell us when we can fully gather again. The great hallmark of our Judaism is our deep sense of community. There's a reason you can't say Kaddish or take out a Torah without 10 Jewish adults present. In Hebrew, a synagogue is not a house of worship, but a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering. And while other civilizations built large monuments and cathedrals, for thousands of years, we Jews have built schools, houses of study, and synagogues of all sizes so we could come together to learn, to worship God, and to share in life's ups and downs. There are numerous reasons we all belong to a synagogue like ours, but I still believe one of the main reasons is that we like to feel part of something larger than ourselves. Full sanctuaries, connecting and creating friendships with large groups of like-minded people, changing the world with people whom you share timeless values. As I've often seen, God is indeed found when people come together in person to pray, to celebrate, and to help those in need. I love that sense of community we have here at Beth Yeshurun. It's been 75 years since the merger that created our beautiful congregation. And I'm blessed to have now been one of your rabbis for 20 years. I believe that community is our number one asset. There's just something so powerful about this place, about being together with others here. And I know so many of you feel it when you walk in these doors. We're more than a building. We're more than an institution. We're Congregation Beth Yeshurun. And that's why I'm optimistic. I believe that once all this craziness is over, we'll want to reconnect more than ever, because I think we'll appreciate how much power can be found in a synagogue community like ours. That's why I hope you'll maintain your membership and continue to support us. So when this great challenge has passed, as we have weathered so many in the past, we'll still be here for you now, and when we can all return safely to our schools, our classrooms, and to our sanctuaries, to pray together, to learn together, and to be there for each other, to be Congregation Beth Yeshurun.
Good Shabbos and welcome. It's an honor to have you here this evening with us from wherever you're watching. We are honored today to have our B'nai Mitzvah, our first Friday night, Saturday morning B'nai Mitzvah of a new school year. So Esther and Daniel, we wish you early Mazel Tov. We know you're going to do a beautiful job, and we know how proud you'll make your family gathered here in our sanctuary and watching from all over the world. We begin our service now with the Nigun as we bring in the beauty of the Shabbat.
Die, 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 die,
Now we continue in our service as we recite the blessing for the candles for this Shabbat. Please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav, Vetzivanu lehadlik ner, Vetzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat.
You may be seated. We continue now as we welcome the angels of peace. Page 5, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeitchem leShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Lachuna Radana Ladonai, Naria, Litzor Yeshenu, page 11.
Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana Ladonai, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yeshenu, Nekadma Fanav Betoda. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yeshenu, Mizmirot Naria lo. Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana Ladonai, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana, Lachuna Radana Ladonai.
The heavens shall be glad and the earth rejoice, the sea in its fullness roar. Yismechu Hashamayim, page 14.
Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Betagel Haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Betagel Haaretz. Yiramayam, 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 Umlo, Yiramayam, 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 Umlo, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Etagel Haaretz. Yiramayam, 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 Lo, Yiramayam, 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 Lo.
We continue now, page 23, Lechado di Likrat Kala.
Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu elam yuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem u'tiferet elitila. Belitila lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor habracha. מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה. We rise פני שבת נקבלה. We rise and face the door. אורי ושלום מתנת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
And you may be seated. Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat Tov Lahadot L'Adonai, page 27.
טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר, ולזמר, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
And now we invite all those in mourning or all those observing a Yurtzeit to rise here or from your homes for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 30. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach yirtei v'yamlik machutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen, yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam omei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechemata, damiram bi'alma v'yemru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, V'chaim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And we now rise for the Baruch, page 39.
Baruch et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
And you may be seated now. We turn to page 40 as the cantor continues with Avat Olam, page 40.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Beit Yisrael, Amecha Avta Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limatta, Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, B'shochveinu, b'shochveinu, v'tumeinu, nasiach, nasiach, nasiach b'chukecha, Avat olam, Beit Yisrael, Beit Yisrael, Amecha avta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Chukim u'mishpatim otanu limata v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki heim chayenu ve'olech yameinu u'vahem negei yomam v'layla V'yahavatcha al tasir mimenu leolamim Baruch ata Adonai Ohei Amo Yisrael. Esther and Daniel now lead us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levacha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha. Vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha veshinantam levanecha v'dirbartam ba'am v'shivtecha v'beitecha uvleftecha v'derech uv'shoftecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, uchtaftam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha.
We continue silently, page 42. Adonai Elohechem Emet. And we turn to page 44 as our B'nai Mitzvah lead us in Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ve'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Mi chamocha ve'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Yam lifnei Moshe, Ze'eli, Ze'eli, Anu ve'amru, Machlicha ra'u banecha, L'keya yam lifnei Moshe, Ze'eli, Ze'eli, Anu ve'amru, Mi chamocha ve'elim Adonai, Kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Mi chamocha ve'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Oh Adonai yimloch Le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ve'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh nora nora, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Oh, seifele. Oh, seifele.
Turn to page 45 for the beautiful Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoenu l'chaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Ve'ad olam hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Now Esther and Danielle lead us in Vishamru on page 46.
Bnei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת Adonai, Asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש, שבת ונפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכנו ביום מלכות ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי דקודש הבריאו לעלמים כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמם, ואמרו אמן, ואמרו אמן, ואמרו אמן, ואמרו אמן, amen.
And now we remain standing for the silent Amidah, page 47 through page 52.
Turn to page 51, and we join in Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
So I encourage everybody to put their arms around each other and let's all sway to Oseh Shalom.
עושה שלום, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, שלום עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, שלום עלינו, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. Amen. Amen.
On Shabbat, we pray. We pray for ourselves and our loved ones, but let us not forget to pray for those who are ill at this time, as the cantor now leads us in a Misha Berach prayer.
שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing for us and all of those we love. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
God, we ask that all those who are ill at this time, you help bring a refuah shlema, a complete healing of the mind, body, soul, and spirit. And let us say, Amen. We can continue now with the Kaddish Shalem, page 54, and you may be seated.
Yitgadal v'yikdash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divra kirutei ve'yamlich malchutei ve'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayedecho b'Yisrael va'agala uv'zman kariv ve'imeru amen Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach Le'alam l'almei almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalo Shemei dekudesh habarehu Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata Tishbechata v'nechemata Da'amiron be'alma ve'imru amen Titkabal tzalotehon uva'utehon dechol Yisrael Kodam avuhon divishmaya ve'imru amen Yehi shlam Rabbah min shemaya ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen Oseh shalom b'imroma Huya aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
So tonight is our second Shabbat table talk. At the conclusion of our service, I'll have the pleasure of sitting down with Rabbi Kenny Weiss. And therefore, we don't have a sermon, so we go right to the Aleinu, and we rise as the ark is opened, page 56.
Be'aladon hakol latet gedula leotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoye haratzot velo samanu kemishpochat adoma shelo samchalkenu kahem vegoralenu kechol hamonam ve'anachnu korim Umushtahavim umodim Lifnei melech Malchei hamachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shehu noteh shamayim Ve'yoser oretz Umashev yekaru Bashamayim ima'o Ushchinatu zo Begovhei meromim Eloheinu Einod Emet Malkeinu Efezilato Kakatuv Betorato Ve'adata hayom Ve'hashavota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu ha'Elohim Bashamayim Mima'o Ve'al ha'aretz mitachat einod Ve'ne'emar Ve'haya Adonai Lemelech al kol ha'aretz Bayom hahu Hiye Adonai echad U'shemo echad.
Now we invite all those observing a yurtzeit and all those in mourning to remain standing for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. In this week at Beth Yeshurun, we offer condolences to the families of Helen Charsky, Chaim Steinberg, Sidney Brown, Peter Kroensky, Ellen Kleiman, Lynette Proler, Morris Silberberg, Margie Bernstein Sheps, Ronald David Slovin, Arnold Bernard Gorin, Margie Aaron Kaminsky. Page 58. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad divrach yiruteh v'yamlik malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yemru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach leolam umeamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu, Leila min kol berkata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechemata, damiram v'yama v'yemru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yemru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yemru amen. Tonight we're fortunate to celebrate 4 anniversaries virtually. It's a pleasure. These couples, all extraordinary people, and all been married for over 55 years. A lot to celebrate tonight. First, celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary, Iris and Nathan Kaplowitz. And Iris and Nathan, you've been blessed this past year with good health, and thank God, no coronavirus. And your children and 10 grandchildren are healthy and ready to go back to a new normal life as we all are. Happy 55th wedding anniversary and many more simchas in the years to come. Celebrating their 57th anniversary, Rhoda and Alan Clayman. This past year, you celebrated your oldest grandchild's 20th birthday. A lot to celebrate and a lot of birthdays ahead for many years to come. Happy 57th wedding anniversary. Celebrating their 57th wedding anniversary, Janice and David Gerber. This past December, all of your children and their spouses and all 10 grandchildren were here to celebrate your eldest granddaughter, Laurel's bat mitzvah. And you were lucky you had a lot of family here to celebrate. And a few weeks later, on January 2nd, your eldest son, Matthew, married the most wonderful woman, Meredy, who you loved immediately. You're so grateful they got to be married when they did and were able to take their honeymoon to South America right before the pandemic hit Seattle. Only continued blessings for you and your entire family. Happy 57th wedding anniversary, Janice and David. And celebrating their 61st wedding anniversary, Celine and David Hecht. Celine and David, you're so thankful and blessed that you're safe and well and able to enjoy your 61st wedding anniversary. You're also thankful that David was able to celebrate his 90th birthday just 2 weeks before COVID took over everyone's life. I remember that great celebration surrounded by so many family members. Only more celebrations such as that in the years ahead. Happy 61st wedding anniversary. And for all of our couples tonight, may God continue to bless you with only more health, blessings, and shalom for many, many, many years to come. And let us all say, Amen. A few announcements I wanted to share with you. In the next few days, you'll be receiving a mailing and an email with details about the upcoming high holidays. This, of course, will be a high holiday season like never before. Our first virtual high holiday season like almost every synagogue in the world. And so this will be an opportunity to learn some new things, see how we're going to do it, all of the work that our incredible staff has put together to make these high holiday services as enriching and uplifting as possible. There'll be information, for example, on how to get your hands on a Machzor. You can borrow one from us, you can purchase one at a discount, or you can upload and download a digital copy of the Machzor, the High Holiday Prayer Book that we use. All that information, details such as that, will be fully explained. In addition, don't forget that if you'd like your loved one named and written in our annual Yisker book, get those names to us as soon as possible. The deadline is a week from today, and there's information on our website and a form to fill out. Do get that in as soon as possible. If you have questions now and about the upcoming high holidays, we have our virtual office hours, Monday through Thursday from 11 to 2. This Sunday will be quite a day in the history of our congregation. It's Sunday at 11 a.m. we dedicate the new Bender Chapel at our Post Oak Cemetery. You can watch the live stream of the dedication on our website. We want to thank the Bender family for their incredible generosity and all the tireless work of our Cemetery Association. It's quite a beautiful chapel, and I know will bring a lot of comfort to many of us in the decades to come. This Wednesday evening, the 19th, is the continuation of a two-part series brought to us by AJC Communities of Conscience. In this series, they are exploring the Black experience here in Houston, and we're honored that our own Rabbi Morgan is a part of this incredible program. I encourage you to watch. Registration is open on our website. And also this Wednesday is our usual meditation program with the Jewish Mindfulness Center of Texas. There are many programs involved in our Mindfulness Center. Go to our website. This Thursday, we continue our every other week Lunch and Learn with me. And this Thursday, I'm honored to welcome my colleague, Rabbi David Rosen. I'll have questions for Rabbi Rosen, what it's like to be a Rabbi Emeritus. What's it like to be retired? What's he been doing? What's he been up to during this pandemic? And what wisdom can he share with us as we prepare for the upcoming high holidays? That's this Thursday at noon, and I hope you'll join me and Rabbi Rosen. We are involved in two great Israel programming series leading up to the high holidays with our friends at Israel Bonds and at APAC. This Thursday night, we'll be joining thousands of people from across the world with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That's this Thursday at 7 p.m. Register directly on our website. And finally, our sister gift shop is available by appointment. Please call our main number or email giftshop@bethyashern.org, and someone will be pleased to meet you and show you all the beautiful gifts in our sisterhood gift shop. Most importantly this evening, I want to wish Mazel Tov again to Daniel and to Esther and to their proud parents, Hagar and Ronan, your younger sister, family members that are here, and from watching all over the world. And your grandparents are watching live from Israel. And so I know they join me in wishing the two of you Mazel Tov. You know what a great job you're going to do tomorrow. And we look forward when you officially become B'nai Mitzvah. And now to end our service tonight, the service portion, I'm going to ask our B'nai Mitzvah to rise and help the cantor in the Kiddush. And then immediately following our service, I'm looking forward to having a Q&A with my good friend Rabbi Kenny Weiss about Jewish campus life today. So please stay tuned. Just a minute after our service ends, we have this exciting program as our college students return to campus. Please rise for the Kiddush.
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lech veratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, ve'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh b'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, zechen letziyat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kashecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchalanu, baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.
Table talk. We had my friend Elias Saratowski, the regional director of APAC. And this is a new program we're going to be doing once a month. This opportunity to have people in the Jewish and non-Jewish community throughout the city. Next month on September 4th, we'll be having my friend Ken Brown Marshall from Channel 2, and the head interviewer of Newsmakers, which is a wonderful show that gives us an opportunity to learn about what's happening in the greater Houston area. Tonight, I have an opportunity to sit down with Rabbi Kenny Weiss, who's the rabbi and executive director for Houston Hillel. Rabbi Weiss is also a lecturer in religious studies at the University of Houston. Prior to arriving in Houston Hillel in 2001, Kenny served as the congregational rabbi in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. He earned a degree in communication from the University of California at San Diego, a secondary social studies teaching credential from the University of Colorado in Boulder, along with a master's degree in Hebrew letters and rabbinical ordination from Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in New York. Kenny does a lot of local and national stuff to benefit Jewish life for college students and Jewish 20-somethings, but he'd rather tell you that he's married to Rabbi Amy Weiss, founder and executive director of Undies for Everyone. Amy and Kenny enjoy spending time with their sons, Eli and Joshua, and when he's not hanging out with college students, you can find Kenny running around Rice in preparation for the Houston Half Marathon, biking around Houston, figuring out a bouldering problem at the local rock climbing gym, or listening to the Grateful Dead while building something in his garage. So Kenny, I know how much you've been doing for the college students in our community for 20 years. You and I came to Houston the same year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we've been blessed to call Houston home and raise our children in this extraordinary community ever since. So let's start with the obvious question is, I know my son's returned to college today. He drove back to Austin, so we feel like the last 6 months have been bonus time. That I have an opportunity to be with him, but he's back in Austin this evening, and we hope he's able to stay there till December. But how is campus life going to look like in this pandemic era here in Houston?
Here in Houston, it's kind of like the rest of the country. There are things, there's a whole spectrum of things that are going on. You know, you take a look at the University of Houston, which technically is open, but 85% of those students are taking classes only online. And then if you look at the other 15% of the students, it doesn't mean they're all in person. It means that they have just at least one class in person, or maybe it's a class that's high flex, which means that it's half online and half in person. And at Rice, they are testing their students, every week for COVID. And they probably have about half of their dorm spaces full. But there are lots of people who are choosing to learn remotely. I was on a Zoom call today with a student at Rice who's a freshman and has chosen to stay in Colorado rather than come here to campus. It's a difficult situation for some people. I was talking to a student from Ohio last week who still hadn't decided if this person was going to be in person here on campus, learn remotely, or simply take a gap year.
Yeah, it's got to be tough, as it is for all of us, but you feel bad for these college kids who've worked so hard to go to a fine university like Rice or University of Houston or another college here, and then they're not able to have the full experience. like so many of us got to enjoy.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. And for so much of college, if you've been reading, the articles that have been around in the last few months about, what is college about? And, we kind of had a stereotype that college is about living in the dorms and being part of that social life. Of course, that is not at all representative of students throughout the country who attend college. But I think it's what our community tends to think of. It's the stereotype that we have. And you're absolutely right. For those people who are looking forward to it, it can be an incredible disappointment.
So, God willing, life will return to normal at some point, probably in the next year. Let's pray. And let's assume it does. What's campus life like for a Jewish college student in Houston during normal times?
So during normal times, I've been working with my staff trying to go with the attitude that what is happening now is actually normal, in terms of putting ourselves into it to make life for students this semester as enriching as possible. But really what's going on is the same thing I would assume in your work. It's really all about relationships. Yeah. It's about connecting with people, and it's sometimes not necessarily about doing something Jewish. It's about connecting with them, learning about their lives, learning about their hopes, their dreams, their concerns, any number of things like that. And that's really what we do. We talk about being in the relationship business, and the kind of relationships that we form are within a Jewish context.
And I'm sure our students, Jewish college students here, appreciate having a rabbi like yourself and your staff. I know what the Hillel staff did for me, and I wouldn't be a rabbi today if it wasn't for that staff at the University of Texas. So I know what a profound effect someone like yourself and other Hillel staff members can have for these college students, some of which come from all over the world.
And I hope you've called that Hillel director recently to tell them.
Oh, many times. Many times. I've done sermons about it.
Okay, that's great, because we're kind of like teachers.
Yeah.
You have an impact, and you might not know, or you're fortunate enough to have somebody call you up 25 years later.
Absolutely. No, I luckily it's just a few hours away, and I'm still in touch with some of the people that were at Hillel when I was a student, and now having my son there, and he's going to Hillel, so it's really nice. So I have to ask, speaking of our college days, in your estimation, how are college students different today from when we were in college?
So you're slightly younger than me, but I think what you have is a separation that really is about baby boomers to everybody who came after. And I think baby boomers technically end in like 1964. So if you were born prior to 1964, you went to college with a typewriter, not with a computer. I mean, I remember I graduated from college in '83. I was using a typewriter. By the time I entered Boulder for my teacher credential a few years later, I was using a computer. Didn't have one, had to go to the lab in the library.
I remember
but that was the transition, and I think that transition has to do also with social media. So it's kind of a generational thing. When we went to college, or I say when I went to college, I had, wonderful achievements that not too many people knew about. And I had failures and embarrassing things that, thank goodness, not too many people knew about.
Yeah.
But today, both those achievements and those failures and those embarrassing moments, everybody knows about all of a sudden, and it doesn't disappear. There was a wonderful editorial in the New York Times, I think, a couple years ago, written by a higher ed administrator who was reflecting on his own life and made the observation that before the internet, essentially, before social media, if you did something embarrassing, even if you did something that got you a night in jail, nobody knew. You went home, and as this person said in his editorial, you learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
And that privilege, that opportunity to learn doesn't exist in the same way today. And so I think that's one of the differences. I'll tell you what's not different. What's not different are the emotions that college students feel. If you really think back to how you felt, when you wanted to ask someone out on a date maybe in college, or when you were unsure about a test, those kind of emotions, or when you wanted to try something new and different that you didn't want to tell your parents about, right? Because You just didn't. It wasn't, you didn't want to share that. Those emotions, that kind of experimentation, that kind of wondering, that totally happens today in exactly the same way.
That's good to know. It's funny, I remember a small thing. I remember when we would have our grades posted by our teachers, it would be done by our Social Security number.
On the bulletin board,
On the
right?
bulletin.
Oh,
And
my God.
Yeah, and now my son asked me the other day, Dad, what's my Social Security number? He has no idea. He's never used it. The little things like that, it would never be shown today because of identity theft, because of the internet.
Exactly.
And
That's
it's
right.
interesting. You don't think about those things until you have a child that's there, or you obviously see it all the time. Let's talk specifically about your Hillel. What are the strengths of your Hillel, and what are your unique challenges?
So really the unique challenge that we have, which makes us fairly unique in the Hillel world, is that we work with so many different constituencies. Most people think of Houston Hillel and they think Rice, University of Houston, but we have undergraduates at another half dozen universities. In fact, earlier today, just a few hours ago, I was on a Zoom call with the student leaders of Hillel at Stephen F. Austin University, 2.5 hours north of us, which is in Houston Hillel's orbit. We support them financially, we support them in all the same ways that we support students at Rice and at UH.
Good.
We have students at Blinn College, Lamar College, HCC, A&M Galveston. All of these places have students. There's one student this year who's at Houston Baptist University. And students end up at these places because there's a specific program they want or something like that. So that's one of the challenges. But the other thing that people really don't realize is that half of our work, fully half of our work, is with 20-somethings, and about a third of them are graduate students. And of those graduate students, they're on 7 different campuses. And they're all independent. They don't necessarily interact with each other. So you could say that we're really operating more than a dozen separate Hillel foundations under one roof.
That's certainly great opportunities, but a great challenge, I'm sure.
And the challenge extends to the pandemic and the situation we find ourselves in today. You probably heard at UT about whatever their protocols are, and you heard from Hillel at UT that this is their protocol. We can't do that. We might have no in-person programs for University of Houston, but we will have for Rice because they're on campus. And then we might have grad students who are all virtual, or they might be some in person. And then we have young professionals, some of whom are incredibly cautious, and others of whom can't wait to go to a bar on Saturday night. So we're kind of all over the place with that kind of stuff, and that's a challenge too.
So one question that I'm sure you get a lot is about the challenges our Jewish students have when it comes to Israel. You may have seen, I'm sure you did, an open resignation letter. University of Southern California's student government head, Rose Rich, resigned last week because she believed her Jewish and Zionist identities made her a target of harassment, slander, and bullying. And my colleague, Rabbi David Wolpe, recently sent out a tweet that said, being a Zionist is the one impermissible identity for college students. So I have to ask, what's it like? What's the latest on BDS on campuses here in Houston?
So there's really 2 answers to your question. One answer is, how does that really impact students?
Sure.
And the other answer is that it might not impact students at all, which doesn't lessen or negate the kind of things that you're talking about, especially the situation at USC, which is just horrendous, not only from a student standpoint in terms of student government and student body, but also in terms of the administration at USC, which really did not step up in any meaningful way. So, here we have students who, so it really gets back to the relationships. I frequently hear from people who are very strong on Israel that, you got to connect the students with Israel, right? Sometimes I just want to connect them with Judaism. Like, Israel is another step, and it's not something that sometimes you can just introduce right away. So for some of our students, Israel, and especially anti-Israel activity, is incredibly burdensome. At the University of Houston, hasn't been this way for a few years, thankfully, but a few years ago we had a time when people really didn't want to interact with Hillel because the anti-Israel stuff was so heavy.
Wow.
And challenges came also with interacting with administration, who, and you can't really blame them, but who would see things and they'd appreciate the anti-Israel activity and they'd appreciate how it impacted students, but they saw it siloed. Whereas for our students, it wasn't siloed, it was an accumulation of events that just became more and more of a burden. Yeah. That situation isn't really going on right now in the same way, although perhaps you've also been reading about increase in online anti-Semitic activity and anti-Israel activity. And we haven't yet seen that, but classes don't start for another week and a half.
No, that's right. Well, what are some of the things? I know you have a great birthright trip. You go to, you know.
So we do amazing things. One of the most amazing things, in fact, the probably number one thing that we do is we have what's called an Israel Fellow. Many Hillels have, and this is an Israeli who works for a Hillel, and we just finished with one person for 3 years. We have a new person, Lior, who's supposed to arrive just in a few weeks.
Great.
And her purpose, you know, just as our shlichim that work for the community, what we find is that if you just interact with an Israeli, you feel better about Israel.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that you talk about Israel. It's just interacting with the Israeli. And so much of what we do also isn't just with Jewish students, it's with non-Jewish students. About 15% of our participants at Houston Hillel last year were not Jewish.
Huh.
And some of this, a lot of it comes from the incredible amount of interfaith work that we do, because we know that if we just reach out to Jewish students, especially with regard to Israel, you know, that's not going to be enough. That's not enough for Israel. It's not enough for our community. One of the things that we've really been privileged to do the past year, and unfortunately we had a trip like this canceled just a couple months ago, but we now take trips primarily of non-Jewish student leaders to Israel and the territories. And they talk with people on both sides, and they get an incredible perspective on the conflict. And, you know, we come back and our goal isn't necessarily to have a bunch of non-Jewish students who are gung-ho pro-Israel. That's just unrealistic.
Right.
But what we do want is we want people to appreciate that the conflict is nuanced, that it can be complicated. Sometimes it's not, but it can be complicated.
Sure.
And that when somebody says something intersectional, for example, where they conflate pro-Palestinian with Black Lives Matter, you know, different things like this, that you don't have people who say, yeah, that sounds good, I agree with that, but rather think more critically about it and ask intelligent questions. And that's exactly what we've had. And these trips have been amazing. They have included student body presidents from Rice and student senators from the University of Houston, people like that.
That's good to hear, and that's what we want from our college students, right? These are young people that are learning about life and making decisions, and we'd want them to be informed.
That's right.
And make their own intelligent decisions.
Yeah.
And that's good to hear. What can we at Beth Yeshurun, our members, do to help?
You mean besides donating?
Besides donating, which absolutely, and I know it's going to be important for all of us.
I wouldn't be a responsible nonprofit executive, right?
That's okay. We understand.
Actually, there's some wonderful things to be done. Mostly, it's helping us identify people. You know, in all of my time at Houston Hillel, I think I've only gotten a handful of emails from synagogues, from families saying, hey, so-and-so is going to be a freshman on campus. And it's a challenge for a lot of synagogues because, you know, the people who continue with their Jewish education through high school kind of self-select, and we know who they are, they find us.
Right.
It's finding those people who kind of checked out after bar bat mitzvah age.
Right.
But to identify them, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Makes sense.
That's a lot of it. Some of the things that the community can do also is to, I think, be balanced. You know, our conversation just a couple minutes ago about how college is a time for learning, exploration, for helping people make their own decisions. You know, it is not a time for indoctrination. It's not a time for telling people what is right, what is wrong, but it's about presenting a balanced perspective.
All right, so one last question. We have students watching tonight, parents and grandparents of students that are going off to campus. What advice would you give any Jewish student going to campus this fall?
So for a Jewish student, it's to give Hillel your contact information. You don't have to go. You don't have to respond. In fact, one of the things that I tell people is that going to UC San Diego, I didn't do anything with Hillel. Ended up a rabbi,
And a Hillel rabbi, yeah.
I took Jewish studies classes.
Sure.
I took Hebrew. I did lots of Jewish stuff, but it wasn't with Hillel. And so the point is that I don't really worry so much about how students are involved, but I am really concerned that they're connected with Hillel for a couple reasons. One is, if you don't know what's going on, you can't say yes or no.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that there are incredible opportunities, and we've seen some of those opportunities. I've seen them just in the past few months. The pandemic isn't just a pandemic, it's an economic crisis. And I've had Jewish students at many different universities send me texts and emails like, Kenny, do you know of any student scholarships? Yeah. And I do. I know of loads of scholarships specifically for Jewish students, and I have resources like that. And there are things like that. And God forbid you have a tragedy in your family.
Yeah.
Something personal happens. It's nice to have someone that you can turn to. So it's about the contact information.
Well, especially right now, because for our students that go out of state, it would be hard for parents to fly there to get there. They may
Yes.
not see their families for 4 months now.
That's right.
And so it's nice to know there's a rabbi there and a Hillel, a synagogue on campus where they can go to, and good times and bad times.
Yeah.
That's an important reminder. Well, we are very fortunate here in Houston to have Rabbi Weiss and his wife Amy and all the contributions you guys make to our community. We're very appreciative, and we're always here to support. We have many people who love Hillel in this congregation, so know you can always count on Beth Yeshurun. I hope you enjoyed our table talk this evening. We have this wonderful question sheet that you can go to our website now, download it, and ask these questions at Shabbat dinner tonight about our discussion and other questions you can ask about what college campus life is like right now for you and your students, your grandchildren. And so you can continue this discussion tonight over your Shabbat dinner. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Rabbi Weiss. We hope to see you again, and best of luck during this unusual fall semester.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.